Hey guys, Dylan from Noble Records coming at you with another video. I've been seeing this thread go around a little bit here lately. Either 10 or 20 records that changed my life. I think Sea of Tranquility did it. Melinda Murphy did it. I think a couple other people have done it. And I did a video like this about 3 years ago. It was called 10 Records That Changed My Mind. And it was just about like 10 records that kind of made my brain go in different directions with collecting and all that stuff. And so I thought I'd do it again. Here in the past few months, I've gotten a lot of new subscribers. And if you don't know me and don't know my story, some stories I do end up repeating on different videos and things like that. But even if you've been following me a long time, I tried to dig through the cobwebs of my brain and think of some new stories for you guys that I haven't told a lot. With collecting, a lot of the same albums keep popping up that were of great influence or changed your life in one way or the other. Those albums stick out, and so some of them I always talk about. But here's some albums. Some of them I've talked about, some of them I've not talked a whole lot about, but albums that kind of have molded me in one way or the other. Some of them, like, it's a specific copy that changed my life, and then some of it is just the album, the music itself. So try to have some fun with it. This is one, this doesn't count. But this is one as I was going through, I pulled this out. This is my very first record, the exact way I found it. So it's in this Capitol sleeve, which is not the original sleeve it came in, I found it at Goodwill when I was 10 years old. Me and my dad would go to yard sales. Me and my mom would go to Goodwill. It was fun. And I was kind of looking through the records and didn't know anything about anything at that point in my life. And she said, this is a good song. I think you'll like it, and she kind of sang a little bit of it. And I was like, oh yeah, I know that song. And she's like, I'll buy you this one. And then, and then we'll try to find you a record player. And I've got whole episodes about that. So fast forward quite a bit. This is no particular order at all. I just picked out a handful. This is Morgan by Steve Morgan. Incredible hard rock record out of New York. It is phenomenal, but in the early days of collecting, I'm going to talk about like the early days of psych and all that stuff for me, like when I started discovering that stuff. This is one that was on such a high pedestal that I thought I'd never find one. I remember I had it on CD and it was in my car all the time. I listened to it all the time. And it's a little bit weird. It's not too weird, but it's, psychedelic, a little bit weird. And so, like, I know my wife, like, when we first started listening, she's like, what is this? And then, like, she ended up getting used to it, and it's just a really good guitar-heavy, amazing record. But this specific album, I had a local guy, it was a local dealer, had a copy of it. And he sent me a text and said, hey, I've got one. I know you've been looking for it. And he told me the price. And I think it was $200. I think is what they wanted for it. And I remember driving and my hands were sweaty on my wheel because I never spent that much money on a record, and I didn't think I ever would. But it was just such a huge record for me, and I so bad wanted it. I was like, yeah, I'll take it. I'll figure out how to swap and trade some things to make the money to get it. And this was like probably 7 years ago. And ended up getting it. And that's actually not this copy. This is an upgrade copy. But that was the first record that I think it was the first record I ever paid more than $100 for. And it just kind of broke my brain. And so when you open the floodgate, sometimes it's hard to close it. So I've done it quite a few times now. But that's a huge one to me. This is Witch Lazy Bones, which I show this all the time. This is my original first Zambian pressing, one of the best records in my whole collection. This is a genre called Zamrock. It's rock from Zambia. It's psychedelic. It's amazing. It's unbelievable. But there was a box set that came out, and I want to say it was like 2012 or so. And it was called We Intend to Cause Havoc, which is the acronym for witch. And I got it. I know that I got it around 2012. And I listened to it, and my mind was so blown that it's like, what the heck? is this? It didn't make any sense to me, like, because it sounded like psychedelic rock. It sounded like some heavier elements of rock. It kind of sounded like funk. It kind of sounded like different thing. I mean, it's the African type of stuff. I mean, it blew my mind that it wasn't. I felt like it wasn't one particular thing, and this was my introduction to Zamrock. This is what I think everybody's introduction should be to Zamrock. It is, if you're wanting to get into it, there's some weird albums in the Zamrock scene, and that's fine. Sometimes you got to just get the right gateway. So for me, this was my gateway. I had that box set that had the album within it, and then I ended up selling the box set because I sold my collection, and then getting a reissue and all this stuff. But when I first started buying records from, like, directly from Zambia, this was the first one I got, and it completely, like, started this addiction of Zamrock stuff from, like, directly from Zambia. And the whole time I was buying, I never got another one that was this good, this clean, this this good of a deal. So that was one that kind of changed me in that way. This is a curveball for you. This is John Mayer, Where the Light Is. Man, it's a long story. I think John Mayer's incredible. When I was, I can't even remember what year it was, maybe 2004. My friends wanted to go to a John Mayer concert. I'm like, I don't want to go see freaking John Mayer, because in my mind he was just like pop songs and stuff, and I wasn't a teenage girl, so I didn't want to go see it. And they were like, we'll buy your ticket if you drive us, because they all wanted to partake in certain substances there, and I didn't do that type of thing. So I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll drive if you buy my ticket. We went, and he, played some pop songs and stuff, but his, like, electric set and blues, it blew my mind how incredible of a guitar player he was. Because I mean, before that, I thought he was a pop singer. I didn't really think much about it. And this came out, I think, in 2008, I want to say. Yeah. And this has the acoustic set, which is like his pop stuff. The trio set, which is, I mean, it's none of this, I guess, that pop. It's Neon, Daughters, Free Fall, and Stop the Train. And then the trio set is, John Mayer trio, blues, killer stuff. He does that version of Bold as Love, which is amazing. And then this is the band set, which is some of the pop stuff, some not. But anyways, this kind of really opened my mind up to, like, but I think that every type of music, almost every type of music, has a sliver of really good stuff in it. And I was able to get past the stigma of the John Mayer fan base type of, you know what I mean, and get to the good stuff, which that was the first album that I was like, you know what, I'm not going to judge anything without trying it first, at least. Some things I don't like after I try it, but that was kind of one for me. This is another one I've talked about a good bit. This is Townes Van Zandt, Live from the Old Quarter. I had listened to Townes Van Zandt's first album, For the Sake of the Song, which is a good album, but I didn't like it the first time I heard it. It wasn't for me. And then I had this record. The first collection I ever bought had this record in it, and that was like 15 years ago or whatever. And I remember holding it in my hands and looking at it. I was like, this looks kind of cool, but I don't have time to listen to every record in this collection because it was like thousands of records. And I ended up selling it without listening to it. And then I heard so many people talk about Townes Van Zandt, and his first record to me it didn't really grab me. And then I got this in a collection years ago. I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago, something like that. And I listened to this because I usually, sometimes if I don't like a studio album, I might still like the live one. So this is a live record. And I was just like, it just caught me, man. I loved it. And I got obsessed with Townes Van Zandt at that point. And then I was able to get a tomato pressing of, this is my favorite record of his. This is the self-titled, it's 1969. This is Original Poppy. It didn't take me too long to find a tomato pressing of it back then. They weren't going for a lot. Now even the tomato pressings are going for a ton. But anyways, I talk about this all the time. The Townes Van Zandt, almost more than any other artist, has changed just the way I even think about songwriting. And some people they're more into like the music side of it, like the actual, instrumentation, all that stuff. And I'm into both, but as far as I love a good song that hits you in the right way, and And Townes Van Zandt, just the way he can turn a phrase and make you feel the pain he's feeling. It's just more than any other artist. And that album specifically has changed my life. This is another one I've talked about ad nauseum, Randy Holden, Population 2. This really changed my life because I started my podcast, which I don't really do much anymore, but I started my podcast way back, like 2018 or so. And I found Randy Holden and got him on my podcast. So I think this probably changed both of our lives. But I got him on the podcast, and while I was interviewing him, he talked about how he really wanted to reissue this album because it had not ever like officially been reissued. There had been bootlegs, but and so that really caused me to like explore the idea of doing like exclusive releases and stuff like that. At that point, I didn't even have a store. So I couldn't reissue this album. I really wanted to, but more than me wanting to reissue it and do a bad job, I wanted him to get a good reissue of this album because it was so killer. So I had like just met Daniel from Rod Easy Records. I really liked him. I thought he did a good job on stuff. And so he ended up reissuing this and let me do an exclusive for the shop. So that kind of started the whole exclusive thing, which has been really fun. And I got to know Randy, and Daniel has become a really good friend of mine that has been essential in like a resource for me starting my label and advice and things like that. This has been Harper and the Innocent Criminals. I'll talk about this a little bit more in that other video I was talking about, the 10 records that changed my mind that I did 3 years ago. But this came out when I was in high school. I think I was in high school. Might have been in middle school, actually. But anyways, I discovered this when I was in high school. And, Ben Harper, incredible musician. He plays a lot of lap steel, which is just awesome. But this is kind of an album that really inspired me to write songs. It influenced me to write songs. And I wrote a bunch of songs in high school. None of them are very good, but they exist. I think now I really still at some point would like to write a whole album and put it out just so my kids could have something. Like, hey, my dad put out an album. Even if it sucked, it would still be something. And I've written a ton of songs over the years, but this has been... this was like the first album that really made me want to do that, This is another one I'll talk about in that video. This is Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, From Her to Eternity. This, I found one of these in a collection way back, and when I put it on, it made me uncomfortable. I remember thinking, I don't like this, but I don't want to stop listening to it. I don't know what I'm feeling right now. And it kind of pushed my brain in a weird direction. Like, not all music you really enjoy, for me, it's more like I identify, like I felt the emotion behind it. So it's not even really that I enjoyed it, which I did enjoy it in a way, but it was that I was like, it stirred me emotionally. I guess I was just and I couldn't figure out why. I still kind of don't know why, but I love Nick Cave and his Bad Seeds. But this kind of opened me up to like punk and stuff. Like, if you're listening to a really good jazz album, like I found in these years of my life, if I have a really hard day, I sit down, throw an audiophile jazz record on, and I just sit back and just let it just wash over me, and it's just soothing. I enjoy it. That is not the same thing you get with this. It's just not. But anyways, so this kind of opened me up to like, this is not punk, but just kind of the punk and things that I got to hurry up. I'm taking forever on these. This is Neil Young, Decade. I freaking love this. And it is a compilation. I knew that. But I found this when I was young, and man, I loved every track on it. I ended up, because I couldn't bring my record player downstairs where the family computer was. So, because I wanted to burn a CD of it. And so I recorded it onto a tape from my record player. And then I took the tape and brought it down to the computer. And then I ripped the tape onto the computer to make a CD. So it's terrible audio quality, but I would listen to the CD all the time of like my record of this. And so when I would go out, and I remember being at summer camp, like my dad had taken me. My dad used to speak at camps and things like that, and I was bored in the summer. I think I was 16, and I remember him taking me with him to this camp that was at the beach, and I was alone. You know, during the day he was speaking and doing other things, and I was just on the beach. And I remember just walking down the beach with my Discman and listening to this album on my headphones. And then I just remember laying in bed at night listening to this on my headphones and just loving it, man. I just loved it so much. But it's just another one. It shaped me in a way, and I love Neil Young. This is Back to the Future, my original soundtrack. I have an original pressing of it, and it's I have a couple boxes of records for my collection at the shop for some reason, and it's over there. But this is on like DeLorean silver vinyl. This is put out by Mondo. But man, this changed my life more than just about anything musically, and it wasn't really the soundtrack. It was the scene. You know, you guys know the scene from Back to the Future. I had never wanted to do anything musically. I never had any aspirations, didn't care much about music. And I think I saw that when I was like 9 or 10. And my dad loved Back to the Future. And we turned it on, and I was so freaking mesmerized by that scene in Back to the Future when he is playing at the dance and he plays Johnny Be Good. And he's got this Gibson. I think he had a 345. Anyways. And I wanted that guitar. I wanted to be able to play like that, and I could not express how drawn I was, like how piqued my interest was in this. I would rewind it over and over and over again. I loved it so much. Side note, I always wanted a guitar like that. And a few months ago, I was buying a collection, and I bought this beauty right here. This is actually a 1964 Gibson 330. It's really cool. It has P90 pickups, beautiful guitar. But as soon as I saw it, the guy had it there. I was a little kid again, sitting in front of the TV watching Back to the Future, and had to get it and bring it home. So another one. This is another one that's super influential. The Court of the Crimson King. I remember this is one of those records that I would see places, and I would see the artwork places, and I didn't know what it was, and I was too embarrassed to ask. But this is, you know, incredible record as far as prog goes. It was one of the earliest, most influential prog records. But to me, I discovered it in my early 20s, I guess. And like I said, I'd seen the cover before, but I didn't know what it was. But this is an original UK press of it. But I just listened to this. I went through a phase where I listened to it every day, like multiple times a day. I remember when my wife was giving birth to our first son. I was 24, I think, and I had it going during labor. So that's been 10, I think. This one is called Underground Fire. I've always thought about starting a label, and then a couple years ago, a friend of mine found this at a yard sale and brought it in the shop, and he's like, "Have you ever heard of this? It's from Monroe, North Carolina." And I grew up in Monroe, so I was like, "Man, I've never heard of that. It looks awesome." We put it on. It's like garage rock. It's really killer. I loved it, and then I immediately thought, I am going to start a label, and this is going to be a record that I want to license. Like, I really want to figure out how to do this. Had no idea how to start a label or anything like that. Got in contact with one of the members of the band, the guy that wrote most of the songs, and we started talking, and it took a long time. It's a long story, but this is the first album that we licensed for our label. I'm not sure if it'll be the first one that we put out, but it's the first one that we licensed, and so we're working on getting it pressed now. It's up on all streaming platforms. So if you want to listen to this, you can listen to it on Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. But this started kind of my passion it actually lit a fire under me to get my label going and things like that. And having a label has changed the way I see music in a lot of ways. Now, I mean, it's in its infancy. I'm still, I think we signed the contract on that like a year ago. So I'm still learning a lot, but it's been a really cool experience. That being said, we just released this, Samuel Prody. This isn't on our label. We do exclusive releases with other labels. This label's called Garrison. They do really killer reissues, or they're willing to let us do an exclusive release. So as far as colored vinyl in the U.S., these are the only ones you can get of this record. It's on purple vinyl. It's got a little like tinge of red in there. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. But we have an exclusive release of this. You can get them on our website. I'll pin it in the comments, put it in the description, all that stuff. But I appreciate everybody that buys our exclusives. We have a couple in there right now. This is like, if you like that Orangutan record we put out, Jerusalem, Black Sabbath, stuff like that. This is a heavy rock, really killer guitar, really, it's a heavy early 70s record. The originals just go for like $700. They're super hard to find, but you can get the exclusive on our website. Appreciate you guys supporting us in that way. I told this story 1,000 times as well. The first collection I ever bought, I bought 7,000 records, and I got a killer deal on it and all that stuff. But when I was standing there looking at the collection, I thought, I don't even know. I spent every dime I had on it, which wasn't much, but it was still everything I had. And I was like, I don't even know if this is worth it. I don't really know what I'm doing. I had sold records a little bit in the past, but not very much. And I said, dear God, I'm going to pull out a record. And if I've heard of it, I said, I'll pull out a record, and if it's something that I like or is important to me, I will buy the collection. And this was a record that I had been looking for, and I had been listening to it in the car on the way over. This is not a first pressing. This is like an 88 pressing, I think. But anyways, I have a first pressing now, but I always keep this copy because if I hadn't bought that collection, I don't really know that I would be doing this now. That's a long story too. This is AC/DC, High Voltage. I had a friend when I was a kid that his dad was a biker and had like a bunch of really cool CDs. So he had this CD, like my dad was a Baptist preacher. There was no rock and roll allowed, until I brought some in, and that we had our tussles over it, but we're cool now. Sometimes he'll come over now and listen to Leonard Skinner on my Analog Productions Leonard Skinner, and he loves it. But back then there was no rock and roll allowed, and he definitely didn't have anything like that. So I went to my friend's house, and his dad had like all these like really cool CDs. I was like, can I borrow this? I'd never heard AC/DC before, but this looks awesome. So he's like, yeah, you can borrow it, but you got to bring it back. You can't mess it up. My dad will kill me. And so I brought this home and listened to it non-stop. And I did not want to give it back. I was like, man, I just need another week with it. And so he's like, my dad's going to notice this. And so I remember on the CD, it had all this artwork and stuff, these notes, and everything on the back. It's just interesting. But I just remember sitting with it forever and just being obsessed with it. And it blew my mind. At the time, I wasn't listening to things that were this heavy, which, AC/DC is not heavy, but compared to like, Stephen Curtis Chapman or something, it's pretty heavy. But yeah, eventually I think I had to give it back, and maybe I don't think we had a CD burner at that time. Anyways, another one, got this one from the Chris Whitson collection. So that the whole Chris Whitson collection has really been huge for me. If you haven't seen that video, I did a video on it. There's the glare I'm looking for. So it's been amazing. This is an original first pressing of this. But I had a friend that was really into like heavier music when I was probably 13. And he burned me a copy of this and this, which this is also from the Chris Whitson collection. Both of them, I could not listen to this. I was not ready for it. Bleach, I was not ready for it. But never mind, I really liked it. It was melodic. It wasn't so weird that I couldn't enjoy it. But after I listened to that enough, it kind of opened my brain up to want to listen to Bleach. And Bleach just, man, it had me in a chokehold for a while, man. I love Bleach, and I don't think I would have gotten there without Nevermind. So that counts as one record, however you want to look at it. I've told this story a bunch too. But when I was a kid, there was this old record store. It's not there anymore. They just shut down a few months ago, actually. And it's local, kind of nearby. It's kind of out there, actually. But anyways, it wasn't like a real record store. Everything in there was $1. So I would go in and I bought like my first Allman Brothers record there. I loved it. And one night my mom had drove by there. I would ride with her when she would run errands and stuff, and I knew she was going to be passing through there, and so I rode with her, and we were driving by there, and they had just closed. And I was like, dang it. And I was like, I wonder if because I think I'd been in there, and the guy said he throws records in the dumpster sometimes. So I was like, I'm going to jump in the dumpster and see if there's anything in there. So I jumped in his dumpster, and there's records in there, and I'm digging for records in the dumpster. It's ridiculous. And I found this record, which it didn't have a sleeve. It was just out, willy-nilly like that. And this is the Muddy Waters Blues Band, Luther, Georgia Snakeboy Johnson. It's on Douglas Records. And I saw it said Muddy Waters, and I had to have been 13 or so at the time. And I had heard of Muddy Waters, but I'd never listened to them. And I was like, free. So I didn't even know what the cover looked like, but I remember getting it home and listening to it, and I'd never heard blues like that before. Like, I think I'd heard like Stevie Ray Vaughan and stuff, but I never heard like real blues. And man, it completely changed my whole entire perception of music and the emotion behind it and all that stuff. I found somebody who was this dude that went to our church, and he played in a blues band, and he taught me like the pentatonic scale and how to play blues and all that stuff. But I never knew what the cover looked like. And then years down the road, I found this. This is one with the cover. There's a promo copy. If you ever see this record, pick it up. I mean, even like guys that are deep into blues have never heard of this. It is a really, 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 really killer record. And it was the first one that I ever. And it's not like, I don't think it's expensive. I think it's like $30. This is another one, July. Holy moly. It's on Epic in the US. It's on Major Minor in the UK. This is one of those first records that I listened to on YouTube back in the day, and it just totally shook me. Psychedelic rock. This is one of my absolute favorite psych records, but when I first discovered it, I was like, I'll never have an original of it, but I don't care. It's just so incredible. And eventually I did find an original, but this is what, like, man, I the first time I listened to this, I was like, I am obsessed with psych. Like, this is my thing. I went through a really crazy psychedelic trip for a long time to where all I was buying was psych records, and now, I'm into all kinds of different things, but psych has been a huge dent in my wallet for many years, and it's largely due to my discovering this record. And then another one kind of in the same vein, I had heard, I think I was listening to the Vinyl Guide podcast back when it first started. I think it was one of the first few episodes. And he was interviewing some record dealers and stuff, I think. I can't remember. This has been a long time. And this one guy was talking about how he had bought a copy of this record for $1,200. This is the Litter. The band is called Litter. The album is called Distortions. I remember thinking, $1,200 for a record? What the heck? And I was like, I gotta hear this. This is insane. So I picked up a reissue of it, and it is really, really, really good. I did not pay $1,200 for this record. I got a good deal on it. A buddy of mine had it. And to be honest, $1,200 for this record is kind of a lot. But this is a killer garage record, and this is another one I listen to non-stop. And every yard sale I go by, I remember I would just go and dig for. This record, I dreamed to pick it up, and then obviously I did not pick it up organically. I had to buy it from a friend who had one, but this is just one that it bent my brain. It changed me. This is another one. This is Don't Cry Little Tree, Trevor Dandy. Long story, this specific copy kind of changed my life in a weird way. So I met this guy online who was local, and he was selling off parts of his collection. He wasn't ready to let it loose and sell the whole thing, but he was selling like bits at a time, records that he knew were worth money. And he sent me some pictures of this. This was like 3 or 4 years ago. He sent me some pictures of some records he was selling, and this was one of them. And I was like, woo! Because I knew of this record. This is a crazy rare, like, gospel funk record from Canada. Trevor Dandy was a music minister in a church and recorded this album, and it has some gospel numbers and stuff on it, and he gave it away to people in the church. I think he had like 100 copies or so that he gave away to people in the church, and then the rest of the copies ended up somehow getting tossed in a dumpster. I think that their basement was flooded or something like that. I don't remember, but anyways, Is There Any Love is the track on here. It's been sampled by all these people, and that's what makes this album worth a lot of money. It's a great album, all that stuff, but I really wanted it. So I ended up going to his house to get this record. And then he kind of opened up his garage, and I think he had like 10,000 records in there. And I dug and dug and dug and dug, and ended up getting so much killer jazz, funk, library records. This guy had been a DJ. And the amount of things I pulled out of that collection that completely shaped my taste and changed my brain was significant. My first library record I ever found was in there, which that set me on a whole path of library records. He had like African stuff, reggae stuff. It was amazing. It really was amazing. So it really turned me on to a lot of African music, and got a lot of jazz, like even hip hop stuff in there. So that was huge for me, and it was all because of this record was my gateway into that collection. So every collection I get, there's things that influence my collecting within each one of them. It's pretty crazy. And every record I have, I could almost pull out and tell you how it kind of influenced me in one way or the other. And that's how my tastes are always like evolving. And that's why I have so many different, like I have my African section, my blues section, my funk section, my jazz section, the wall, my audiophile section, the rock section, the punk section, the grunge section, the metal section, the library section, the folkways section, the modern section. I mean, I have all these different little cubby holes and all this different crazy stuff that I'm into, and all of it kind of shapes the way I hear and enjoy music. Led Zeppelin 3, I've told this story a million times. When I first got the CD of Led Zeppelin 3, I had it on my Discman, and I was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina on vacation, and I was listening to it in Myrtle Beach like nonstop, loved it. And that particular trip, there was a hurricane that came through, and we had to evacuate because we were staying in this like high-rise like apartment thing that we stayed in every year when I was a kid. And my mom did not want to go home. She still wanted to be at the beach. And so they evacuated, and they sent everybody to a high school. So I think it was North Myrtle Beach High School that we stayed in. But I'm telling you, this was insane. That they like we got barricaded inside this place while the hurricane was blowing through there. And I remember looking out the window and seeing like it happen, but we had to sleep in the hallway with like a bunch of other people. It was insane. But I remember laying in the hallway listening to this and just being at peace, like loving this record. But that's the memory that like the first week I ever heard this album, all that was going on, and it was just. But Led Zeppelin 3 is completely. It's one of my favorite records of all time. It's been a huge influence. Last one I'm going to show is this one. This is Bill Evans' Jim Hall Undercurrent. I was digging at a yard sale. I was in my early 20s, and I found this record. I'd never heard of Bill Evans or Jim Hall. Had no idea what this was. I saw the label, and so I was like, it's probably jazz. It was not this copy. The copy I got was hammered, and it's long gone now. But I was like, this cover is so captivating. I have to buy it. It was $1, so why not? Took it home, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. It was another entry point into jazz for me. This is a great jazz record if you've not heard it. Even if you don't like jazz, it would be an album I think anybody would enjoy. But Bill Evans, I have a ton of Bill Evans records now. I mean, I probably have close to the same amount of Bill Evans as I do Led Zeppelin. Well, probably not, but as far as artists go, I probably have more of him than just about any other jazz artist. I love Bill Evans. Another one I was going to pull was I found a first pressing of I Love Supreme at a yard sale when I was young, and that kind of got me into like the outskirts of jazz. Another one was James Brown, Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. That one really blew my mind in high school and early college. I listened to a lot. So like I said, every record that I get influences me one way or the other and kind of forms my musical taste. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're a new subscriber, thank you so much for joining the ride, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Send me a message, a like, all that stuff. Love to engage with you guys. Love to hear what you think, maybe what some of your most influential albums are. Thank you.